Mic on.
I look like shit. Oh.
Well, to begin, we have to go back to 2004. Fresh out of Akron, Ohio, LeBron James let all the naysayers know that he was the truth. After a successful Rookie of the Year campaign and an $87 million Nike deal, LeBron was a far cry away from where he was even just a year ago. Still possessing a strong allegiance to Akron, LeBron founded the LeBron James Family Foundation as a 19-year-old. As a way to help out struggling children like him when he was growing up. As his career accolades and profile grew, so did his organization. In 2005, LeBron hosted his first annual bike-a-thon, with kids from Akron riding along with him, joined by NBA friends Carmelo Anthony and Dwayne Wade. He continued to provide steadily for his community and took it up a notch in 2011, where he started the I Promise initiative, a program that gave resources to underprivileged children in Akron in order to help them succeed in school. This would go from bikes to computers to even annual trips at amusement parks.
I love being in this program. It's life-changing.
After a few years, this initiative expanded to the I Promise School as a way for kids who are at risk of flunking out and being claimed by Akron's tough environments, like LeBron almost famously was, to express themselves and be supported. It was a fantastic idea and the first of its kind. There have been schools opened by celebrities before, like Deion Sanders' Prime Prep Academy, Will Smith's New Village Academy, and Kanye's Donda Academy, all with varying levels of success. LeBron's school, however, was different. It was a fully public school as opposed to private school or academy. There have been schools opened by celebrities before, like Deion Sanders' Prime Prep Academy, Will Smith's New Village Academy, and Kanye's Donda Academy.
Yeah, I
all
remember
with,
those.
Varying levels of success. LeBron's school, however, was different. It was a fully public school as opposed to private school or academy, fully integrated into the Akron public school system, and operated as such. Only that it's got over 100 of LeBron's game-worn shoes inside, and over $1 million a year in extra funding. This was history in the making. In a regular public school, LeBron James became the vice principal. In America, there hasn't been a large-scale project like this. One of the reasons being, I'd be remiss not to mention, is that LeBron is, again,
going to the school would be so annoying, dude.
Schooling for lower-income families and children.
Oh, see LeBron everywhere, all the time, every day.
Not only has he opened a school, he's opened up transitional housing down the block from the school for families and parents of students who might be experiencing bouts with homelessness.
Alright, well that's cool. If you're gonna give people housing and stuff, a stable home, because that's the thing, it's not just having like a good home, you need to have like a good school, you need to have a stable home, right? Because if the kids have a good school experience but they go home and, it's chaos, they're just, the school is just going to fall apart, they're not going to keep up with their grades, they're not going to do their homework, they're going to fall into,
there are 50 families here who prior to
bad behavior
with finding housing. This initiative right here gives them a home. Less than 2 blocks away from the I Promise school. There's also the I Promise apartments, geared for longer term stay. Then there's House 330, where parents of kids are employed by the facilities to give them work. I talked to some of the people there, and they had nothing but wonderful things to say about the foundation.
I was never accepted into the LeBron Foundation. I don't think I would have known truly what to do in life.
There are schools out there that receive additional funding, but you're not going to find them in America. You might find them in Japan.
This is a very nice school. What?
Or a private school. There's no place in America that's providing public school resources to a facility such as this, except for LeBron. So, what's the problem? Well, for starters, we have to address what exactly it was that made I Promise so special in the first place.
I Promise is a weird name for a school.
There were genuine benefits that looked to be promising for children coming from different backgrounds. The inaugural principal for the school, Brandy Davis, an Akron native and 18-year veteran of Akron Public Schools, put it plainly in national news circuits. We are going to be that groundbreaking school that will be a nationally recognized model for urban and public school excellence. We are letting people know it is about true wraparound support, true family integration, and true compassion. Wraparound support, like a hug. That's one of the core tenets of the I Promise school. It's the vibe that LeBron James and his, family foundation were looking to cultivate. It's plastered everywhere around the school, and it's even the first thing you see on the website, and also when you pull up to the school. The I Promise school was looking to create an environment where kids at school felt like they were at home, and that their teachers were family. This was accomplished in a multitude of ways. On top of the taxpayer funding that I Promise got as a part of the action.
I mean, so far, like this sounds great in principle. I'm really curious to see how it deteriorated so badly.
School district, something for some reason that drew ire in the local press. There's about $1.5 million extra that the LeBron James Family Foundation provides for the I Promise school budget. Given its rather elaborate interiors and miscellaneous costs that came with new features, the foundation spent approximately $2 million in the school's inception. This extra spending goes for creating smaller class sizes for children, free bikes, hiring tutors for after-school programs, free breakfast, lunch, and afternoon snacks, as well as an on-site family resource center, which includes a food drive, GED education classes, and lawyer services for parents of the I Promise kids. Beyond that, there was a significantly longer school year from July to May, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., as well as 4 intervention specialists and an ESL teacher. All of this in Akron, home of one of the poorest school districts in the state. Then, of course, there are all the visits made by LeBron James, his shoes on the walls, and sometimes personalized messages and shout-outs from the king himself. To any kid, best school ever, right? The teachers thought so too.
Oh, I actually thought it was going to be amazing.
This is former I Promise school teacher Jessica Gerber,
a 12-year veteran of Akron Public Schools,
who started at the I Promise school in 2022. More on her later. The very first school year of the I Promise school started with much fanfare. I mean, after all, it was literally the LeBron school. Everyone and their mother wanted to know how it turned out. So much so that LeBron's media company, Spring Hill Productions, commissioned a documentary on the first year of the I Promise.
Of course,
You can find it on
documentary.
YouTube. I highly
Of course, documentary.
In the first
Gotta
year,
have a documentary.
there's a great amount of resources that truly do provide relief for families in serious need. It instilled hope in the family involved in the school.
The basketball player who's gonna help him and stuff, you know, with his problems, like with his reading, everything.
But now the issue, and the very big issue at that, is actually educating the kids. The way that the I Promise school was selected was through a lottery consisting of second graders from the bottom 25% of achievement levels in Akron, those classified as academically at risk. The lucky 120, or technically 240 because it was 3rd and 4th grade for the first year, would get placed into the I Promise school and receive nice perks like free uniforms and more serious ones like jobs for parents. All of these children came with baggage, and a lot of it. It tended to be the reason even that they were low achieving. They weren't able to focus on class because they were acting out. Oftentimes this was because they had unstable home lives, with families not knowing how to prioritize education because they hadn't been down the path themselves and were busy worrying about other things. Take Nate, for example, a kid who was showcased on LeBron's Instagram story, who began at a kindergarten reading level. If something got too frustrating or intense for him, he would get up and walk out of the classroom. His teachers would say that he was so behind, not because he wasn't able to learn, but because he wasn't spending enough time in class. The lady who we saw from before was Nate's grandma, who lives with Nate's mom and her 7 kids. What happened to the dad?
And his friends set him up. They stabbed him, started running over. They stabbed him with a stone.
On top of that, Nate had experienced a SWAT raid in his apartment complex after his uncle had been caught selling drugs. He says that he wasn't scared, but it's clear the experience impacted him.
Police, put your hands up!
Nate is just one of such cases, and in the classroom, one of 20. In another class, there was a little girl who felt so unsafe that she would lock herself into one of the very fresh and new lockers at the school. After a few weeks with the kids, one teacher admitted,
You have the romantic thoughts, like, I'm gonna change the world. So when you get in and you have 20 kids who struggle with school and you have some kids who have behavior issues, you kind of be like, okay, well, this is a little harder than I thought.
Now, I'm not going to reveal all that happens for the documentary if you're looking to watch. But at the end of the day, it ends with phenomenal news that 92% of kids met or exceeded their expected state growth in both math and reading. And
Well, that's good. How'd it get to the point where it's like absolute garbage?
on average, the kids moved from the 1st percentile in English to the 9th percentile for 3rd grade and the 16th percentile for 4th grade. And in math, kids went from the 1st percentile of achievement levels to the 18th. And 4th graders went from the 2nd percentile to the 30th. In that first year, the rate of growth in the I Promise school was better than 99% of schools nationwide. This was a huge win for I Promise, and things were looking up. But there were still issues. One, just because kids had met or exceeded their expected level of growth doesn't mean that they were on grade level at the end of the year. It just meant that they at least advanced 1 grade level in 1 year. There were some big success stories where some advanced further, but overall, many of the kids were still below grade level, advancing to the next grade. And beyond that, there are some more serious issues brewing. Summer, which included a 7-week summer camp for the kids, yet another perk, came along. Despite the behavioral issues and mountain of progress that was still left to be made, the sentiment regarding the school was still tentatively hopeful. There were revisions made to the initial plan of the school, one of the last ones being that they weren't going to add first and second graders like they initially intended to. But they moved on with the next cohort of third graders, and the original fourth graders became the inaugural fifth grade class. And it seemed like the sky was the limit. Then, of course, the pandemic hit. Now see, this is where things got bad. For a lot of us in the US in regular home and school situations, the pandemic was an inconvenience, sure, and lowered work ethics overall. I was a senior in high school and I experienced the strongest dose of senioritis I think one can get, but I came out relatively unscathed. For those in younger grades, the results were much more dire. Over the last 3 decades before the pandemic, 8th graders nationwide have steadily been getting better at standardized math tests. But from 2019 to 2022, almost half of that growth in 30 years has been lost, setting 8th graders in math back literally 2 decades. Now, imagine the kids at the I Promise school. Kids like Nate, with 6 other siblings, a mom that works nights, and a grandmother. He had to find a place to focus in all of that mess. Or some kids that may have their heat shut off, so they'd have to focus through the cold. A student at the University of Akron did a small study involving 10 teachers who taught at the I Promise school during the pandemic. The study found that all the teachers had significant issues getting the kids to follow instructions, and a large majority of them believed that their kids were performing worse than expected, while having overall negative behavior. There have been studies done about the disparities that were exacerbated in the pandemic between high-income and low-income families. And that was the same in the Akron School District, a lower-income district. They also suffered from what's known as learning loss during the pandemic. The amount of failing grades in math went up by 9%, and chronic absenteeism also went up drastically. Now, imagine kids in the bottom quartile of this district in a situation like this. The ones that were hard enough to keep in the classroom during regular school. There wasn't any way this was going to end well, and it was a nasty halt to the momentum that had been building up. The kids that needed food and support had to now rely on teachers and employees driving around Akron, delivering them lunches and face-to-face communication. One teacher knew the route.
That's gas, dude. All the gas you have to spend.
And to get to the mall, which she did routinely, it would take 3 hours. A quote from her as she was helping out a family. And it really just dawned on me. School is not this family's main focus right now. They're literally surviving. Like many did, I Promise got through the worst parts of the pandemic. It was hard, but they did it. But then things took a turn for the worse.
Also developing this evening, the principal of the LeBron James I Promise school in Akron has submitted her resignation following an allegation that she slapped an 11-year-old student.
Brandy Davis, the veteran principal, Akron,
Holy sh!
assaulted a student shortly after the pandemic was started.
Hold up. She just slapped us. Look at. Dude, listen up.
That she slapped an 11-year-old student.
Right? You'd think, not that bad. You know, she. You know, like if it was like a male principal, maybe that would have been like a serious, like, oh, that could like do some damage. But
Brandy Davis.
Look at that. The weight alone, the mass. I mean, if she, I don't know how much of a slap it was, but, whew, man, I would not want to get slapped by her, let me tell you.
The veteran principal, Akron, born and bred, assaulted a student shortly after pandemic restrictions on the school had been lifted. The testimony she gave was that there was a situation in the bathroom and a kid had took a dump in the urine. One of the kids told Miss Davis she was rushing to the scene of the crime, using some pretty crass language. Miss Davis then said she went into auntie mode, treating the kid like her own nephew, and slapped him for using the S word. The kid's lip was split and bloodied. She immediately and profusely apologized.
Yeah, I bet.
But the damage had been done. From there, it was kind of downhill. Miss Davis was one of the main faces behind the entire operation. She's still listed as the principal on the I Promise school website, but due to the incidents, she was immediately placed onto paid leave in September of 2021. Davis then resigned in December of that year, and the school began a very turbulent period. While Davis was on paid leave, retired principal Charles Jones stepped in immediately to be the interim principal. Then after a month or so, principal of another APS school, Anthony Lane, took over for the rest of the school year. Going into the 2022-23 school year, things were looking bad. In just 1 year, the school had 3 principals. But they were able to secure a permanent principal, a University of Akron graduate and assistant principal from a nearby school district, Tawana Ham. She was a promising and eager prospect. But after 1 year, she was moved to another principal position in the district, and shortly after left Akron altogether. The district didn't give a reason, and when the local paper reached out to Ham for comment, she didn't respond. Remember Miss Gerber from before? She was at the I Promise school for the exact same amount of time that Miss Ham was. And, well...
I'll tell you a story from the first time I walked in, the very first day I had...
You know it's about to get good here. You already know.
shared a classroom with an intervention specialist, and I walked in, and he was like, the kid was 7th or 8th grader, and he was just chewing out the teacher, and she's a young thing. And I was like, don't speak to her like that. And you don't talk to me. I don't know who you think you are. You don't come in here and talk to me. Walks out, slams the door. I mean, my first 30 seconds in the classroom.
Wow.
And that kind of sums up how the kids act. They call it a walk and talk, and anytime they don't want to be in class, they throw a fit and they walk out of the classroom. I had an altercation with a very large 6th grade student who was trying to fight another student, and I was trying to break it up, and then he, turned on me like, get out of my face. I don't even want to repeat what he said to me. And there was at the front door of Akron, or I promise is an Akron cop. And I looked at him and I was like, are you going to do anything? And he just slowly unfolded himself. He goes, they don't listen to me either. That's the response.
Wow. Wow.
And
Yeah.
after that incident,
For
I
real,
called my
wow.
boss and I said, if you don't get me out of this school, I will quit right now.
Her experience speaks for itself. A lot of these problems were evident and documented in the first year of the school, but progress was still ultimately made. But when the school went into the pandemic and then lost its founding principal, the visions that the founding team came up with weren't able to be executed properly. New students came in with the same problems as the old students, and it got to the point where it seemed that the culture was dictated more by the students than by the teachers, at least according to Ms. Gerber.
The teachers try to get kids to do things. I mean, I will be like, it's not the staff. Like, there's no support there at all. There's no accountability. I mean, we've got 7th graders beating up 3rd graders on the school bus. We have kids. I mean, when I say fights daily, multiple, constantly. Fights. The amount of tears that I saw from teachers that work there, everyone's put in for transfers. Like, I knew at least 5 teachers who put in for transfers because they just don't want to be there.
The teachers became overstressed and overworked, a lot of which had to do with another critical component, IEPs. If you're not familiar, it's
I have one of those.
IEP standing for Individualized Education Program. In the American K-12 system, assigned to children that have a learning disability and require extra attention in the classroom. These disabilities range anywhere from dyslexia to speech impairments to autism. And these kids are often in regular classes with other students with just a bit more attention given to them from the teachers. Nationally, there are about 15% of these types of students. In the Akron Public School District, there's about 17%. As of 2022, the I Promise School had 30% that required an IEP, double the national rates and damn near double the districts. In some classrooms, that number was as high as 45%. And one of the grade levels had 50% of children with some sort of learning disability. Damn near illegal in Ohio. And straight up illegal in Akron. It got so bad that the Akron Public School District placed a limit on kids who had gotten an IEP to I Promise, capping them at 10%. It was this environment that made I Promise so difficult for teachers.
But according to Ms. Gerber, that wasn't the only issue.
Because what you see on social media and what you see, like, LeBron, everything is given, nothing is earned. Or, everything is earned, nothing is given. It's actually the opposite. Everything is given, nothing is earned. I Promise isn't any different than the kids that we're getting in Akron Public Schools. They're just getting selected. Half their siblings are with us. Do you see what I mean? Like, everyone's got trauma. I don't know. Like, it's just a different environment. I've never been in an environment where there's no accountability like that.
And this was reflected in the report given 2 years ago after the 2023 school year. Keith Lichty, the liaison between the I Promise School and APS, compiled a report to present to the board concerning the I Promise students and their scores. The first report since the first year in 2019. But the news wasn't so good this time.
3 years, not one child passed the state test in math, not one.
What this board member was referring to was this chart, one of a series in Keith's presentation that told a story quite opposite from the end of the first year, from a time of promise and opportunity to one of stagnation and even failure. After the pandemic, kids from the original 3rd grade class, with kids like Nate, not a single child passed the grade level state exam in math for 3 straight years. This is even more damning when considering their testing protocols.
It takes the I Promise kids 5 weeks to finish a test. 5 minutes, I'm not kidding, and they want a break. I need a break. And they're allowed to have one. They get up and they walk out of the classroom. They need a break.
Not only were the kids not doing well, they ended up, by the 8th grade, growing less by kids who weren't selected to go to the I Promise school and went to other Akron schools despite
IPS enrolled.
being eligible for I Promise. Again, by the time these kids left 8th grade, the kids who were eligible for the I Promise school in Akron and didn't end up going were growing more than the I Promise kids were. In math, 42% of kids were making a year's worth of progress in school compared to just 27% of I Promise's kids in the 8th grade. And in 7th and 8th grade,
In English,
I Promise kids were still learning less than kids in other Akron schools. And when we're talking about this year's worth of progress, by the way, this is again meaning that if all of the 8th graders came into school with a 5th grade math level, then only 20% of them in I Promise would end up with a 6th grade math level by the end of the year.
Wow.
The APS board president at the time, Derek Hall, made this point.
Those numbers could be 100% growth, grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. But if they
Just
came to us 2 years behind,
slows
they leave us
down
2 years
so
behind.
much.
If they're not exceeding 100%, then they're not actually catching up.
Still though, we do have to keep in mind that the
Wow.
I Promise School is quite literally the first of its kind. LeBron James and his foundation were the first to help open up a public school. And with unplanned obstacles like a global pandemic and a principal assaulting a student, there's not that much that could have been done about it. At the end of the day, it is still a high-class facility that's helping out underprivileged kids. And when I think about the kids that I met at House 330, multiple going into fields that wouldn't have been possible without LeBron's foundation, I have hope.
Wait, he just showed 2 people that work at Starbucks.
That much that could have
He's not talking about these people,
At the end
right?
of the day, it is still a high-class facility that's helping out underprivileged kids. And when I think about the kids that I met at House 330, multiple going into fields that wouldn't have been possible without LeBron's foundation, I have hope.
Wait, hold up. Let's read that one more time. Went on a trip on AP CEO's dime. Wow. Would have been possible without education. Studying to be a nurse practitioner. Okay. Okay. All right. Fair. Fair. Yeah, sure.
Wouldn't have been possible without LeBron's foundation, I have hope. Mrs. Gerber,
Being inspired. I don't know. I can get inspired by a curvy piece of driftwood. I don't think that being inspired is something to highlight.
with all of the issues that she took with the school, even conceded that it could work.
That the premise of what he wanted to do was a really good idea, and I think bringing in the upper grades ruined that. If they would have kept it with 3rd and 4th grade, they would have saw big things happen.
Since that report was made in 2023, the school has made some progress, led by Principal Stephanie Davis, a fully committed Akron native. Because of the bad test scores, the I Promise School was placed under state intervention in 2 categories, Black students and students with disabilities, where both groups were testing in the bottom 5th percentile of the state. In February of 2025, the school was able to exit out of that classification, which is of course progress, but there's much more work to be done. When the inaugural class graduates high school, it's very likely that it'll show that the kids would have done just as fine, if not better, if they had went to a regular Akron school. But then again, it's not quite fair to judge I Promise on its first class. Like an I Promise representative said.
We also, in essence, opened a middle school during the time of a pandemic, and a lot of the initial work was put into the development of what did the elementary school look like and how was it built. But I don't know if everybody came back to the table and did the same level of work, given that we were in the middle of a pandemic, to build out the middle school.
With a more stable leadership culture, more experience and more tweaks, the stats will improve. Now, will it end up that the I Promise School will be a nationally recognized model for urban and public school excellence? Probably not. But will it change lives for students and their families? From what I saw in Akron, that seemed to be the case. School or no school. The kids that I saw were empowered to see and pursue their dreams. So, again, is the I Promise School failing? You tell me.
Amazon sucks right now. Uber sucks right now. Netflix sucks. Facebook sucks. Instagram sucks. Every big tech company is changing in front of our very eyes. And I know I usually try and see the bright side of tech, but for this video, I just want to be very brutally honest. I think most of these services we use are worse than you think. And
I agree.
To do something about it. The first thing to understand is basically every big tech company follows the exact same pattern. Something that a guy called Cory Doctorow summarized really well with the term vacation. See, when any of these companies first starts, their only chance of succeeding is to go above and beyond for their users by solving a key problem.
Let's take Uber, for example. Uber came in 2009, and I remember first using it around that time and thinking, This is the end for traditional taxis. This is far more convenient. The taxis find me instead of the other way around. The drivers are friendlier, the cars are cleaner, and it did all of that while being so much cheaper. I mean, Uber at the start was 50%, sometimes 30% of the price of a traditional taxi. And so it's not surprising just how quickly people flooded onto Uber. I remember that within just about a year of it becoming operational, it went all the way from party trick to an essential app that everyone should have. But then things changed. As soon as Uber felt like they had the user side of the market cornered, completely locked into the app,
They made it
shifted
shitty.
focus to the other side, the
Money.
drivers.
Because they weren't making any money. They weren't making any money though. They made such good products, they lost a fuck ton of money. So yeah, they needed to like make some money. It's like kind of a catch-22, I guess. Because then it just gets shitty. But I don't know.
And so if Uber can manage to control them and also the drivers, Uber owns the market. It means the users will have to stay where the drivers are, and the drivers will have to stay where the users are. So they sweeten the deal for them. Uber started handing out sign-on bonuses for new joiners. They started giving cashback on fuel and discounts on car maintenance. They paid their drivers 80% of what the app made, and the best part of it was surge pricing. Anytime there was a pickup in demand, drivers could well earn 2 times, 3 times, sometimes more. I remember coming out of a music festival once thinking, I don't need to pre-book my car, Uber will sort me out. Only to realize that because I was coming out with crowds of other people, my only way to guarantee that I got an Uber was to outpay all of them with 5 times surge pricing. I paid £100 for a 15-minute cab ride. But there is a third stage to this master plan.
Because what does Uber do when they have the users, when they know they're by far the most convenient way to hail a cab, and they have the suppliers, the ex-taxi drivers, the restaurant takeaway drivers, the package delivery drivers? Well, that is when true entropy occurs. They gave users a surplus at the start to make their app essential, then shifted to giving suppliers that surplus to get them all on it, to build monopoly power and make it much harder to get a car outside of Uber. But this is the point where Uber, and every other big tech company in this position, will take all of that surplus for themselves. Because A, well, they can, but also B, because by the time a company reaches this stage, more than likely they are a public company, which means that the decisions aren't being made by one potentially passionate founder, but instead just many, many shareholders. And because shareholders aren't usually as invested in the long-term health of the business, they just want the business to earn quick money so that they can cash out, their objectives often boil down to how do we make the users pay up until the absolute limit of what they're willing to, but just not past it? And then how do we pay the suppliers the absolute least that they're willing to take, but just not less than it? So this is what that identification looks like in practice. And it all starts with tiering, splitting the base service up into multiple tiers, all at different
Mic
prices.
off.
And on the face of it, that sounds great. Like on Uber, for example, it means that you can now get priority if you want faster, comfort, which is newer cars with more legroom, exec, which is high-end.
It's true. You know, I'm seeing a direct correlation between like making more money and making things shittier. Like this is 100%. I mean, SaaS companies do this all the time, making tiered subscriptions, and it is 100% making people more money than just selling like one product, one level or something. It makes it simple for the buyer. I mean, there's lots of reasons people do it, but let's hear what he has to say.
Cars with top-rated drivers, and then Lux, which is the very, very top end. Think about it. Now that they offer all of these options, what happens when you just get a normal Uber now? You get extremely long wait times because no driver who can charge exec prices is going to take a ride for normal prices. You get all the drivers who don't qualify for high-rated service, and all the cars that don't count as new enough for comfort. And trust me when I say the requirements for comfort are not very high. This idea of splitting things up to offer more premium services is not inherently bad. It's just the way these companies achieve this is much less about making the experience better for the people who are paying more, but much more about just making it worse for the people who aren't. Uber isn't changing the pool of cars on the road to accommodate these tiers. They're the same cars, the same people with the same training, but it's just now they're segregated in a way that each user pays the maximum they're willing to pay, and the service provided is the bare minimum for that price.
Or take Netflix. When Netflix first started, it felt revolutionary. I can pay £5.99 a month, which is cheaper than an average movie ticket nowadays, and get all of this ad-free?
But then Netflix introduced 4K quality, which instead of just being added to the base service, became part of a separate tier, now being charged at £17.99 a month. Then they actually went as far as to introduce adverts back into your movies, after the whole deal about this being the way to watch movies without...
I hate that shit.
Mic on.
I fucking hate that shit. I can't believe people pay to see ads. That is so fucking stupid.
advert. And unless you upgrade to the middle subscription tier, which is £10,
Mic off.
you're going to get those adverts. Netflix isn't even the worst offender, to be honest. At least their ad-supported tier is cheaper than the normal tier, whereas Now TV and Amazon Prime, they just stuck ads into the normal tier. The point is, tiering is not being used to benefit the user. It's being used to charge you more if you're willing to pay more, and then give you the minimum acceptable experience if you're not. And that brings me on to subscriptions in general. Subscriptions on their own, they can be fine. They can be a way to make services more accessible instead of having to front-load a big upfront cost. They can be a way to force companies to continue to provide value and updates over a period of time. But the way that these big tech companies are using subscriptions now has meant that we're often not paying those monthly subscriptions instead of the bigger upfront costs. We're paying them both. And you're actually getting a worse service now whilst paying for a subscription than you were originally for free. Like Amazon, for example. The entire purpose of Amazon Prime was unlimited one-day deliveries. So why is it that now we're also having to often pay to get the fastest delivery? And for many products, actually having to hit a minimum spend just to get that perk, which is how every online store has ever worked since the very beginning, but without needing to pay a monthly fee. Or for Uber, I regularly used to take Ubers to go see Drisha early on when we were dating. She was about 120 miles away, and it used to cost about £120. But over the last few years, I have seen that price not just creep, but soar up to 150, 200, 250, and now £300.
That's crazy.
Uber has gone from half the price of a normal taxi to, in a lot of cases, actually more expensive than just calling up your local cab company and pre-booking a car. And remember, that's for the lowest tier, which, because this tiering exists, means that you are specifically selecting a car that's at least 8 years old, with a driver who's completed less than 100 trips, or someone who just hasn't been able to keep a good rating. And you remember that surge pricing we talked about earlier? That still exists, but now you just don't see it. Instead of Uber telling you that you're about to pay 3 times what you should be paying, it just does it, so that you start losing your reference point of what the journey even should cost. And that is where the subscription service comes in to save the day. Uber One. I'm paying for it every single month because it gives you a 5% discount on your rides and free delivery on your Uber Eats food orders. I'll get to that one very soon because that is actually an even bigger problem in itself. But the point I'm trying to make here is that if Uber is just inventing the price, if Uber is just deciding how much it can charge you for this particular journey, as opposed to giving you an actual breakdown of why it costs what it costs, then a 5% discount on a made-up price, it doesn't actually mean anything. And you're still paying far, far more than you used to just a few years ago for the same rides, and now you have a monthly expense as well that further ties you into using Uber and Uber only for all your driving and delivery needs. And if you're enjoying this rather painful video, then a sub to the channel would be ironic, because we're asking you for a subscription. But this one's free, and we do try very hard, so... Anyways, if you're wondering why that Uber now costs £300, it's not because the drivers start paying. The biggest way that companies like Uber and Amazon, once they become the default option, start to take all of that surplus away is simply by extracting the largest cuts that they possibly can from every transaction. Let's call this the platform fees. Let me show you Uber Eats for a minute. So I fancy some
platform fees.
Right, okay. Wow. So the first thing you'll notice is pricing. Almost every item of food on Uber Eats is between 10 and, no joke, 100% more expensive than it actually is in person. Like 20 chicken nuggets, £6.99. That seems like an awful but okay, add to basket. So then when we go into our basket, oh, look at that. Add £8.01 to save with Uber One. So again, notice, just like with Amazon Prime, Uber is trying to frame this as if I'm getting some sort of perk, when actually free delivery is something that I am actively paying a monthly subscription just to get, and the app is denying that benefit until I hit a minimum spend, which, by the way, almost always means wastage. I mean, it's encouraging people to order more than they want to order. Besides, what can I order that's going to exactly hit £8.01? I'm going to have to go over. But anyway, let's go to the next page. Oh, people also ordered to really try and tempt me into getting those group savings. But no, resist. Next. Oh my goodness, would you look at that? Priority delivery, £2.49. And just to be very clear, priority delivery isn't some sort of hyper-accelerated, personalized service that would very much be worth that price. All it means is your driver doesn't take stops on the way to you. You know,
So worth
exactly
it.
how every takeaway service ever used to work. And this is a great example of tiering. When Uber Eats first started, it was just an assumed thing that of course your driver's going to come straight to you to deliver your order. Up until normal restaurant takeaway service have been eliminated, and now, well, you want fast, you pay for fast. So okay, fine, we're going to go priority. I don't want my food to be cold when it gets to me. And then you scroll down and, oh, priority delivery is actually being charged at £4.78. And that's because it's actually on top of an already existing base delivery fee. And then there's just fee. So if I click that, it says part of that is the small order fee for orders less than £10, because orders less than £10 should have an extra charge because they're going to cost more to be delivered. What? Because the priority delivery fee is my delivery fee, so why is there a separate delivery fee for the fact that my order is small? Do you see what I'm saying? And then there's the service fee. And this is what Uber wants you to think of as their cut. But the truth is, Uber is taking a slice out of every single part of this pie. Actually, I can show you. So McDonald's chicken nuggets price. Okay, so it's £4.49 on the McDonald's app, which basically means that just for delivery, Uber is taking 70% of the value of the order. What a joke. And this is actually what I find the most insulting part of it. It's the fact that we're paying a monthly subscription for Uber One, right? I've just paid extra for priority delivery, which says between 10 and 20 minutes. But when you click order, Uber will only get involved and even think about refunding you anything if the order actually takes 45 minutes or longer. Okay, so just to be very clear, your special guarantee, just for me, because I'm one of your highest paying customers, is that my order will not take 2.5 times longer than the upper limit of what you just guaranteed it might. Oh, well, thank you very much, Uber One. It is mortifying how much they're exploiting the consumer here. I mean, imagine what happens if companies like this get in charge of your medical and emergency services.
Amazon is just as bad. The other day, Drisha was buying a batch of mini little hampers for some gifts she was putting together. £12.99 is the absolute cheapest you could find them on Amazon. And just before we checked out, we thought, let's just do one little check elsewhere. And within a minute of browsing outside of Amazon, we found them for £4.
It's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking, well, I've paid my delivery fee. That's what I'm paying this subscription cost for. There's no way that this thing is going to be cheaper in another store that I'm not paying a monthly fee to have free delivery from. That's what they want you to think. But the truth is, Amazon is charging for Prime, Amazon is charging extra for delivery in some cases. Amazon is charging sellers to sell on the platform, and then they're charging you extra to buy on the platform. And you can even notice this effect with free platforms.
Mic on.
Social media, for example. Even though companies like Facebook and Instagram, TikTok, even YouTube, even though they're not directly charging you, will
Hey, one viewer, what
absolutely
video game
find
should I
ways
play?
to maximize their earnings from you once they know that you're in. Once Facebook had got everyone to sign up for the first time by being this open haven where you come to keep connected with every single person you know and love, they became very aware that no individual person could just leave. That would be social suicide. So Facebook could crank that money-making lever as much as they wanted to.
They could fill it with ads. They could charge companies as much as they wanted to target those ads at you. They can curate your feed, taking the people you follow not as commands,
What is her feed?
but just suggestions. Suggestions that are quite quickly
Whose feed
discarded
is that?
as soon as Facebook realizes what they can show you and makes more money out of you.
Now, where this all gets really
Oh my
deceptive
gosh.
is the dark patterns, basically tricks that companies
Yep.
employ to make you do things that you didn't mean to do. Chicken nuggets are here. I'm actually fasting, so I can't eat them. There you go, enjoy them. They were £13.75. Last year, actually, I signed up to using an app called Piccolo. It's just a social or drinking game where it serves you prompts on your phone, and then you get those people to do those things. Like, hey Brian, from now on, you have to do the worm every single time you say something. Sorry, Brian. The game's got a 3-day free trial. Oh, great. But then it's £4.49 per week. £4.49 per week for a game that's very clearly been designed to be played once a month at most. And I would have happily bought it for £4.49, or even £10 if that's what they charged it as a one-off fee. You know, how it used to be before the subscription thing took over. But anyway, I went for the free trial, I played the game with my friends. We were drinking, so I didn't specifically remember to cancel it when I woke up the next day. And it took half a year. When my accountant asked, what is this £4.49 every week going to Apple? When he mentioned it, I realized I had seen it a couple of times coming up on my accounts, but because it was just a payment to Apple, I assumed, oh, it must be iCloud or something. Negligent on my end? Yes, absolutely, but I'm human. I forgot once, and my penalty for that, for playing one phone game for 2 hours one night, about £110. There are plenty of subscription services I have that I think are fair, but this is a very clear example of one that is predatory. One whose entire business model clearly revolves around charging an unfair price and hoping that people will forget. Another dark pattern that I see so much of nowadays is the manipulation of the default option. Like, I shop a lot on Amazon, right? And the reason for that is that even though I know they're often no longer the cheapest, is that they're basically the only company whose delivery infrastructure I can mostly rely on. The only company for who, when they say next day, it really does mean that it will come next day. This is the key problem that Amazon first solved for its users. It's what got us all so invested in the platform, and what got me and millions of others to start paying monthly subscriptions to Prime. But now Amazon, as well as oftentimes introducing a minimum order quantity to get that free delivery, also often pre-selects the slower delivery option with, and I've looked into this, no way to stop it doing that.
Just looking for
so let me just get this straight. You're charging me a monthly subscription for unlimited next day delivery, but then assuming that unless I specify otherwise, I'd rather get the slower delivery that I didn't have to pay for. And this is absolutely an example of a dark pattern, because we've had at least 3 or 4 occasions where we're about to film a video, and then we realize some of the stuff that we'd ordered for that video hasn't actually arrived. We go back and we realize it's because when checking out in a hurry, we didn't realize that Amazon didn't select the fastest option that was advertised to us as the delivery window on the product page. Honestly, at this point, there is an intricate web of dark patterns these companies are using, and you'll absolutely have experienced some of them.
Like deliberately confusing website design intended to fool or confuse the customer into not cancelling their subscription. For example, it's quite common to have multiple pages you have to go through to cancel, but then what some companies have started doing is flipping the continue and the back buttons between each page. So as you're trying to mash your mouse as quickly as possible to unsubscribe, you're actually being taken around and around the company's pages in a loop so that you end up reading their entire spiel, aggressively offering you discounts, and only offering those discounts right before you decide you want to cancel, which always makes you realize how much you were overpaying in the first place. Encouraging you to pause your subscription so that it automatically resumes after a set period of time, as opposed to you being a functioning adult who can just cancel and then rejoin later if you decide you want to. And trying every single thing they can to guilt you with the fear of missing out, with things like continue your deactivation only if you are a boring person who never likes to have fun again.
There was a big study by Email Tool Tester who found that the average consumer encounters over 6 dark patterns when trying to cancel any subscription service nowadays. I mean, imagine talking to a person and they try to mislead you 6 times in the span of a few minutes. That's so bad that it's hard to wrap your head around. I actually experienced one of the worst examples of this just last week when I found myself with a little bit of spare time and I thought, I'd love to get just 1 month's worth of PlayStation Online play. That should be simple, right? So I opened up the purchase page for online and no, I don't want premium. No, I don't want extra. I just want to play online. But wait, there's no option to just buy 1 month. There used to be. Does it just assume now that when I subscribe, I want to stay subscribed forever? But okay, fine. So I'll just buy the essential package and then I'll cancel straight away so that I don't get charged in any subsequent months. So I do that. But then, where's the cancel button? You'd think you'd be able to go to the same place you bought it from to cancel, but no. The only thing you can do on that page is to upgrade. The cancel is actually hidden in your console settings. But where in the settings? I spent so long looking, I gave up, and I actually had to Google to find that you have to go into users and accounts, then you go into account, then payment and subscriptions, then click PlayStation Plus. Okay, so then surely you just click cancel and you're good, right? Oh no, because then it asks you if you'd rather change your plan after I've specifically chosen to click the cancel button instead of the change button. Okay, so click cancel. Are you sure you're about to lose these benefits and more? Then when you confirm, yet another window asking you for your reasons before it will actually let you cut. But it's not even just about what any one company does in isolation. It's just the fact that every big tech company is doing a subscription is in itself part of the problem. Because in most cases, the more subscription services there are, the worse each one gets, and the more that you end up having to pay just to be able to still do the things you want to do. See, you have a limited amount of time, right? Let's say you have enough spare time to watch 2 movies a week. In an era where subscribing to Netflix at its original £5.99 price lets you watch all the big blockbuster movies people were talking about, that's a cracking deal. You're basically paying 75p per movie. But then Disney Plus comes along and takes Disney-owned shows onto their own platform. Apple TV Plus comes along, Amazon Prime Video, Paramount Plus, Peacock, and every single one takes the rights for one or two of the big exclusive must-watch shows, and before you know it, you're paying like 6 different subscription services. Combine that with the tiering, which means that if you want the perks and the ad-free experience that you initially signed up for, along with that high quality, you'll be paying mostly between £10 and £20 per month to each one. Remember, your time hasn't increased. The amount of content you consume hasn't changed. You're just paying movie rent to more different companies and using each service much less, amounting to £11 per movie you watch now, which is about what you would have paid for a DVD in the first place. It feels like we've looped all the way around and now we're back in the same place we were, except now you don't own anything. And services like Netflix are constantly culling their libraries just to keep their costs down. I was counting up the number of my own paid subscriptions I had a few days ago while planning out this video, and it's only when I totted it all up that I realized just how ridiculous it's become. Like, just for work, I subscribe to Epidemic Sound, Slack, Trello, the entire Adobe Creative Suite, Frame.io, Surfshark, Twitter Blue, Google Drive, Uber One, a whole load of different plugins, and then personally, Netflix, Spotify, Vodafone, Tidal, Apple TV Plus, Apple iCloud, Amazon Prime, YouTube Premium, Deliveroo Plus, PlayStation Plus, Xbox Live, Nintendo Switch Online. Oh my god. So the total I spend on subscriptions in a month is 1,212 per month. Now, the truth is, subscriptions and the dark patterns that often come with them, they're not going anywhere. It's not surprising that every single company wants them. They give predictable, regular revenue, which is basically the holy grail for businesses. I mean, it's a lot more encouraging to say to investors, we have 1,000 users and you can expect 950 of them to pay again next month, than to say, 1,000 people bought our product, we'll try and get more next time. It's way easier to get people in with a cheap subscription and then upsell them later on with add-ons and more expensive tiers, as opposed to having to go all in with the big upfront hard sell on a big purchase. And also, subscriptions create lock-in, so the people who are subscribed, they're not just paying you for the subscription, but they're also likely to keep paying you more while trying to make the most out of that subscription. And then finally, lots and lots of money. I mean, here's what a company's revenue looks like if they sell 100 products each month for £10, and here's what that same company's revenue looks like if they sell 100 subscriptions for £2 a month. It overtakes the individual purchases very quickly, and it just keeps accelerating. So, what do we do about it? Well, just me to you, what I would do is, when you sign up to a subscription that you know you only want to use for a month, just cancel it straight away. You'll get that first month, and you can make sure it's nothing past that. If you're stuck subscribing to every single
This
one of the
video's making me want to go cancel subscriptions right now.
Watch them all, you could just try rotating, subscribing to one at a time, binging the thing that you most want to watch on that one for 1 month, and then moving on to the next. But then part of it also has to be policy. We should be pushing for governments to enforce smoother switching between platforms, like still being able to contact your Facebook friends without having to be an active Facebook user, and focusing on making platforms continue to deliver on their initial promises, beyond that initial honeymoon phase. So a social media platform, for example, should first show you what you signed up to see, as opposed to what will drive the most retention. Amazon should first show you the product it genuinely thinks is best matched to your search, as opposed to who's paid the most to advertise. And Google Search should first show you the reviews that it thinks best answer your questions, as opposed to just assuming that Google's own reviews should always be on top. And then also just keeping the consumer in mind when it comes to companies fragmenting. A lot of attention is given to when companies get too big, and rightly so, that's a big issue, but it's also bad for the consumer, especially in this subscription era, when they get split up in ways that make each one a worse proposition in their own right. Now, one of the few subscriptions that I have that I genuinely think flies in the face of most of this is Surfshark VPN, for a few reasons. It actually fixes the mess created by some other subscription services like Netflix, who don't buy the licenses to all their shows in all the countries, so every country has a different library, which this lets you access by just flicking your location. It doesn't have any of those weird catches like this subscription only works for people so long as they stay in the same household. No, this subscription works for you and every single person you know. They didn't price themselves at $20 or $15 or $10. It's less than $3 a month when you use the code BOSS, with 3 months for free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And most importantly, instead of amplifying themselves, Surfshark has actually gotten better. I've been using it for years now, and the app has got cleaner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good. Play it there, buddy. I wonder what I should play. I want to play a video game. Oh, I want to play a video game. I'm downloading and installing Battlefield. Or I have Battlefield. I'm talking about Escape from Tarkov. I haven't played Battleflield in a long time. Let's give it a shot. Let's see. I got one viewer. I wonder if he's played or she has played Battlefield before. Oh, I clicked. I do not agree. I'm a buffoon. Oops. I have to scroll all the way down. I don't know. Recording my voice and shit. That didn't used to be the case. Wow. Stream boo. Thinking start with the big one. Right. How am I not? Okay, well, it's not the. Okay. I'm already not liking this. I want to be sniping. Recon. Here we go. Where's these headshots I'm looking for? There we go. Oh shit. Yeah, we're saucing them. You cannot jump that high in this game. What the fuck? Oh. Oh, hello! That was gonna hit him, bro. Fuck. Oh. How is that not a headshot? It's my question. Oh. Pull myself back up real fast.
Spero che le famiglie facciano.
And there I go. And there I go. Ouch. Medic. Alright. Well, I can't run through things like in Battlefield. Damn. Whoa. Let's see what's up here. Ow. Ow. That hurt. That hurt. Okay. find there because it's like you have to run through all these tunnels. Wait, same place. God damn it. What the fuck is this? Okay. What the fuck? There goes my medic. Lame. Let's get after it. Oh. Yeah, all runways over here. Let's see. Let's try to get a little closer. A little closer to the action. Jesus. Oh, ha. It's not close at all. Not close at all. Alright, let's disconnect. Damn, someone got 100 kills. That's actually too much. What game next? I'm waiting on Escape from Tarkov to install and download. It says 38 minutes left. You know? I am not sure. Let's go with what do you guys think? I'm feeling... You know, I want to try this out. I think this is a good game. It's going to be a good game. We'll see. We'll see. We will see. Oh. Oh, you can't see that. You cannot see what I'm doing. She was loud. costs his belly. Yeah, maybe not this game.